Hello and welcome to another edition of Let the Qur'an Speak. My name is Sophia, I'm your host. Courts in British Columbia have recently ruled that laws against polygamy should remain on the books. The ruling was made in the context of the bountiful community in British Columbia, but it has repercussions for Muslims as well, particularly those Muslims, a minority, that practice polygamy. Also, Friday congregational prayers have resumed in Valley Park Middle School, and with the resumption of those prayers, the controversy has also resumed as well. Critics say that gender segregation continues to remain in the current arrangement, and we'll be looking at what sort of flexibilities remain in the Muslim community or in the Muslim tradition to deal with that situation. With me is Brother Shabir Ali from the Islamic Information Center. Brother Shabir, welcome to Let the Qur'an Speak.
A pleasure to be on.
Before we get to the topics I've mentioned, we'll look at a verse from the Qur'an. And the verse we're looking at is from chapter 9, verse 113, and we've titled it Praying for Others. So maybe you can tell me what the verse says.
Yes, it is a verse that is much misunderstood. The verse says in Arabic, مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولِي قُرْبَى مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. It is not appropriate for the Prophet and for those who are with him, the believers with him, that they should pray for the polytheists, even if they happen to be of close relations, to pray for their forgiveness, that is, after it has become clear to them, that is to the Prophet and the believers, that they, the polytheists, are the possessors of the fire, meaning that they are dwellers of hell.
So what do you think this verse means? I guess the verse was revealed in the context of the Prophet Muhammad then, or some circumstance in his life.
Yes, before we think independently of what it means, it's good always to look at what the classical scholars have thought about this, what usually is thought that this verse refers to, and this is the misunderstanding that I intend to address. It is often simplistically assumed that this should be taken in the most general sense possible, and that it refers to all polytheists. And one might say that, well, the Quran has made it plain to us that polytheists will be in hell, and therefore it's not possible to pray for polytheists. But now, it's often modified, at least in making a distinction between this life and the life hereafter. And many will say, well, you can pray for a person of another faith for them to have welfare and good health and so on in this life. But when it comes to the life hereafter, the Quran is very plain that only the believers will enjoy paradise. The polytheists will be in hell forever. And they say in that case, this verse prohibits you from praying for them. So now, having looked at that classical situation, we now are faced with the reality of our present situation. We know that life is very complex. Human beings are complex entities. All human beings are shaped by their environment, by their social circumstances, by their family upbringing, and so on. And most people remain on the faith that they grew up with. Very few shift religions after some investigation or for whatever reasons. So since that is the case, it means that people often are on the religions that they are for little fault of their own. Even if those religions, if God were to deem that this or that religion is a false one, hardly would the people be totally blameworthy, because much of what they have inherited is due to their own circumstances.
Well, the Quran does say that the truth is evident and clear to people.
True. But the reality of our situation is still thus, that somebody born in Saudi Arabia is more probably a Muslim than any other faith. Somebody born in another context may be more probably of a particular faith that is very prevalent in that region, and so on. So given that this is the circumstance, now we should look at this verse one more time and ask, does it really say what generally has been thought about this verse? And on closer inspection, it doesn't actually say that. This verse has to be taken in the context of the whole Quran and its revelation, the context of the life situation of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And it seems that what is clear is that the Prophet himself was often privy to revelation about who is going where. It is known in Islamic tradition that there are certain persons who are known as hypocrites. They were, in fact, not convinced of Islam, but they pretended to be Muslims outwardly, and the Prophet knew their names. But he didn't reveal this to his companions. Some reports say that he revealed the names to Hudhaifa bin al-Yaman. But even so, he did not reveal that to others. So it means that he knew, and if he told somebody, they would know, but others wouldn't know. Like if we ask you, how do you know that a certain person is going to be in the hellfire? You say, okay, but he died as a polytheist. But then I can ask you, well, how do you know he died as a polytheist? Because you don't know what is in his mind. Yeah. There is an interesting story that a polytheist was defeated, and the Muslim who defeated him went ahead and killed him anyhow, even though this person uttered the proclamation of the Muslim faith at the last moment. So the Prophet asked, how do you know that, the person excused himself by saying, well, he was only saying that to save his skin. But the Prophet asked him, how do you know? Did you open his heart to see what is in there? So how do you know what is in the faith of the person, of the mind of the person? What faith is there in the mind of the person? You don't know. So it is possible that a person in the last moments may actually have confessed faith in God, even though not audibly. But between that person and God, that is the faith with which the person is dying. So we cannot be judges of who goes to paradise and who doesn't go to paradise. We can pray in a general way that God forgives people. And if we ask about a specific person, so suppose you're in paradise and you look down and you see that there are some people in hell. So what would be your desire?
For them to come to paradise.
Yes. So if that is your desire, and if there's nothing wrong with having that desire, then what's wrong with asking God to fulfill that desire?
But the verse says just not, it is not appropriate for the Prophet or the believers to pray. So the believers, I guess, would refer to us as well, not just, people at the time of the Prophet.
Yes, but here I've given you the real scenario where you are in paradise, you see the non-believers in hell, and it is still your desire that they come out. So then we can ask then, it is a separate question from that historical circumstance, so I've actually jumped a step here.
Okay.
And where I'm arriving at here now is that when we look at verses of the Quran or pronouncements from the Prophet, peace be upon him, we should differentiate between some types of pronouncements which are there to give you a kind of impression or a jolt, as opposed to establishing a legal injunction. Legal injunctions are very clear. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. But then there are some passages which are there for the purpose of just giving you an overall sense of things. And this is how this verse should be understood. It gives you the overall sense that polytheism is, in the sight of God, not acceptable. So in the Islamic teachings, monotheism is what should prevail. We should worship God and God alone, turn away from polytheism. That is a serious matter. That's what we should understand from that verse, but don't understand it as a legal injunction that says, no, you absolutely cannot pray for a polytheist.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break. When we return, we look at the BC polygamy case.